Some of you will have noticed that last patch introduced one of the biggest buff infantry units ever got in this game. So we're going to be talking about Goresh Skogul being the #1 march in the game for the season because of their recent buff that was just basically something that some people might have missed. Basically what happened is if you go into Swordman here and let's do T5, this is called the Swordsman Alertness, and there is one for every type of infantry unit depending on your faction. Now this ability for infantry units used to be basically the first part where your swordsman can launch counterattacks when attacked by a ranged unit, but only 50% counterattack damage, meaning that you can counterattack range units, but you just do half of the damage you would do if you were counterattacking in melee, which is obviously fine. Now this entire part afterward is completely new for this season. They have a 50% chance to gain 1 stack of Ironclad. Every stack of Ironclad reduces range damage taken by 5% for 15 seconds out of a maximum of 8 stacks. So this means you can have 8 stacks of 5%, which is 40% reduced range damage for 15 seconds. This is incredibly long and incredibly OP. This effect can be triggered by the same legion 1 time every 18 seconds. This means that 1 legion can give you 1 of these buffs at every 18 seconds. So if you are attacking only 1 legion, it will take you almost over 3 minutes to get 40% reduction. But if 8 legions target you at once, you will instantly get 8 stack in 1 second. That is my understanding. So you will be gaining a lot of tankiness very quickly in combat, as of course mages and archers are the backbone of this game, so there is going to be plenty of them to target you and give you max stack. For those of you who played last season, you already know Goresh Skogul is one of the top marches in the game. It completely annihilates almost every 1v1 in the game in terms of trading positive, and even being targeted by up to 4, 5, 6 targets at the time. Sometimes you are still trading positive even though you're getting outswarmed, outnumbered like crazy. It takes dozens of marches attacking an infantry at once to kind of give it a bad trade. Now this is going to be even worse because of this 40% reduced damage is insane, because most people don't play calves because obviously calves get demolished by infantry and infantry don't do that much damage, which means that there's not many damage sources in this game other than ranged units, and that damage was reduced by 40% instantly. It is going to make this combo of Goresh and Skogul absolutely insane. Now, I want to talk about exactly how to make that combo even better. So speaking about Goresh and Skogul, first, of course, Goresh is normally going to be the primary and is a very, very powerful hero in its own. But the really nice thing about Goresh is that you don't need all of his skill unlocked to get the maximum of his potential. So the first skill here, Wild Blood, is obviously his rage skill and one of his best ability. It gives him a lot of physical attack and it reduces damage taken by a significant amount for 6 seconds, which is almost an entire rage skill duration, meaning that you will be casting your rage skills every 8, 9, 10 seconds maybe in combat, sometimes less because you're getting attacked, which means this will be having an uptime of almost 100%. So obviously this must be maxed at all time if you are ever going to be playing Goresh, and you can't unlock other skills unless you've maxed this one. Now, the second one, Steel Skin, is in my opinion his second best ability. Infantry counterattack damage bonus 20%. Obviously he's a counterattack infantry guy, it's really good for him. And defense bonus by 15%, so very, very good stats. Both of these stats are amazing. Now the next one, while this is a very decent ability, it makes it so that when he is counterattacking, he has a chance to do additional damage to enemies. Now this is very decent, but the damage factor is 200, so the amount of damage you're doing is quite low. At one point you're still getting 50 of the damage. So if you are going to be using damage to trigger anything, you're going to trigger it nonetheless because of the fact that you're still doing some of the damage from this ability. You're just basically, the more point you invest in here, the more damage he does in counter-attacking. But as a role of a tank, which is something that he's going to be very, very good at now, especially with the buffs, you don't care as much about doing this damage. And again, 200 is a very, very low skill damage factor. It is good. It is AoE. I'm not saying it's bad in any way, but you have to also realize that this is going to be reduced because of the fact that it has additional targets. So the first target is going to take 200, the second is going to take 170, and then eventually they're going to take 100 each, the other ones. So again, very, very decent ability, but if it's not invested in, your tankiness ability won't really be affected. Now last is completely useless as it is for besieging cities on stronghold, so has a very, very, very niche amount of play in the game where it happens. So for most players, you don't need this at all. So you have gotten 5511 or 5551, very, very decent. The Awakening is a very strong Awakening in terms of a buff for his principal ability. It gives 10% more attack and 5% less damage taken. So this is a decent buff. For Wells, it will make a massive difference. It's very, very good. But for someone who is low investment, 5511 without the Awakening, you still have about, I would say, 80% of Goresh's potential available to you. And you do not lose out on so much, especially as a tank. He still stays a very, very strong tank without the rest of his abilities because they don't really boost his tankiness that much. So in that case, I would say Goresh, in my opinion, 5511 is kind of like the minimum investment anyone can do. It is a very inexpensive thing to do as you don't need that many tokens and you will be able to get them very easily within a few days, a few weeks of buying the shop, the VIP and stuff like that, as well as the daily pack if you can. So just putting it out there, Goresh 5511, you will be able to do very good things with him, and that is really going to be something massive in this season for most players to have. Now, as his deputy, Skogul is obviously the hero that's meant for him as it has a lot of things that complement each other. There is quite a few other choices that work with Goresh. Of course, I'm going to mention them a little bit after, but first, Skogul, the biggest thing obviously is a rage kill, HP 50%, a very, very good buff. Again, this is a buff that lasts 6 seconds, just like Goresh, so they do buff their own march basically for a long time. And then Blood Fury makes it so that your Legion deals more AoE counterattack damage every second when you are at close range and they're attacking you from close range. So a very strong 6-second buff, also making it so you do way more damage in melee range against melee targets attacking you. So this is, again, a very, very powerful ability that you must have at 5. The second skill here is just basic buff. We're getting physical attack bonus, very good for counter attack damage, very good for damage. Again, infantries are not meant to be as much damage as they are tankiness, in my opinion, for most players who are not maxing these like crazy, but very good. And then 10% HP, obviously HP is the best stat in the game, so you like that. Now, the third skill is where it becomes more interesting. So again, Skogul is just like Goresh, in my opinion. 5511 is the minimum investment you can do in her for her to really be good, because you're getting the majority of her kit. Now, this third ability is still a very, very strong ability. Guerrilla Tactics makes it so that in the field, she gains 60% march speed every time they berserker charge, meaning that you attack a target for the first time. You're going to charge into them at a very high speed, and you do gain a percentage of attack up to 25% attack eventually. Skogul is going to be a hero that the more investment you give, the stronger she is. I'm saying the minimum is 5511. Obviously mine is 5111. It is the bare minimum is 5111. Again, I'm just saying the first ability you get most of her strength. The second is very powerful. This one, what I like about it is that the 60% march speed, which is really the best thing you get out of this ability. Obviously getting more attack is always nice. You like having more stats, doing more damage, but again, not exactly to do with tankiness. But you are getting the 60% march speed no matter how many points you have in here. So you're getting 60% at level 1. Which means you're not getting more speed with more level, which would have made it even better and more important to get this ability. So in this case, the really good reason we like Skogul in the March especially is because you can charge into enemies really, really quickly, intercept, counter. This is very, very powerful. You're getting most of that from one point here, which is why I'm saying it's a possibility to have her at 5511 because you are getting good stuff here. And then lastly, her tough as nail is that she has a 10% chance to heal herself every time she's hit with a normal attack. This is a heal of 350, so a very low amount of healing in my opinion. It's her worst ability. Obviously it's still good, it's still something. It also can trigger some of the stuff, but in general this is a very low amount and won't make a huge difference in my opinion. Of course it can differ, it can have different builds that work, but this is in my opinion the one you can skip the most if you wanted to just do 5551. This is not going to be a huge difference in your battle reports in terms of merit and how long you lasted, so you do want to skip it. You are able to without too much repercussion. Now lastly, the Awakening, this is where it's obviously a bit of a hit because this is just a passive extra that makes it so you do 10% more counter attack damage. Again, if we're using Goresh Skogul as a player like me who's a mage main or an archer main, you're using him as a tank to have them on the field, to be tanky, to have control. This doesn't make much of a difference because you are not farming merit with this march. But if you are using that as one of your main march to farm merit, and trust me, they will be printing merit all season long because of how strong they are going to be now, especially when they're both awakened, this is going to make a difference. So I'm just saying it, putting it out there. If you're a infantry main and you want to main it, Skogul is worth maxing. She does have very, very powerful boost the whole way, and her Awakening is very powerful, but she also is playable at 5511 or 5551 for most players, including myself, who is going to obviously do a 5511 Goresh with a 5111 Skogul. We will see after rolling a few wheels if I can get some of her skills up. But really, it's just about bringing in Infantry March this season will be what makes a difference. Now, the one thing I want to talk about in terms of pairings is what else could you do? Of course, Goresh and Skogul work with basically anyone. You do have to remember that they're very counter-attack and damage focused heroes. So they do gain a lot of offensive capability with counter-attack damage extra. But it doesn't really matter. For example, Madeline works very, very well with either of them. With Goresh Madeline, I think it's very powerful. Obviously, there's a big shield, more physical attack, works perfectly with Goresh. More capacity, which is amazing. More damage dealt in the field. So again, very, very good. And here, more counter-attack damage, 15%, more HP. So, you know, Madeline has absolutely nothing on her kit that's bad whatsoever. She is amazing. When the shield is broken, she does more damage. And this is obviously even better. So, Madeline is, in my opinion, one of the best infantry hero in the game still. The only difference is that in her kit, she doesn't have mobility stuff. So, Goresh and Madeline are very, very slow march, and they lose the 60% buff from Skogul for the movement speed. So they don't get this extra fast charge that you like to see, and that makes a big difference in combat. But it doesn't really matter again because most players are going to be able to do a lot as tanky. Madeline with Goresh, or even Madeline with Skogul as secondary, you could do it. Skogul will help you go fast with this march. So this is really this mix and match with these three heroes. You can really put them anywhere and it works well. Last thing I want to talk about is going to be the talents, how you build these heroes. Of course, the big thing about Goresh and Skogul, as we saw earlier, is going to be their rage cast ability is very powerful, and it is a 6-second duration ability for both of them. So when you go into talents and you go into the infantry, you can see here Iron Will, the last talent, makes it so you extend this by 1 second. So as I said earlier, in general, a rage cycle is every 7-8 seconds to 10 seconds before you cast your rage skill again. So once you cast a rage skill, 7-8 seconds later you cast your second rage skill, and then that means that the buff, the uptime of a 6-second buff, it loses it basically for a second or two, depending. It could be even 3 seconds. It really depends on how much rage your march is generating, which will matter different aspects of the game, but as well as how many people are targeting it and attacking it. So this is adding 1 second to that, which makes the uptime even closer, if not almost 100% in many situations. So this is why Iron Will is a must with Goresh Skogul. It's super powerful for both of them. The other one, Ready for Battle, is not bad. It's very decent in theory, but this is just you know, such a massive buff that it's hard to let go of it. There's quite a lot of options you can do as well in the trees here, but in my opinion, this is the best infantry route that you want to go. Otherwise, of course, there's move speed here that you can instead take some tankiness, and then there's move speed here. You can also instead take some tankiness. And then in my opinion, getting for the tank Unyielding Spirit as the second route is going to be a very, very decent choice. What I'm most likely going to do, but you can also go in the rally tree because this doesn't impact you rallying. It's more damage for you, so this could be very good as well if you want to take Landslide in the rally tree. But you know, in my opinion, it really just is about going to go for these two last, especially for the Iron Will for Goresh and Skogul. Now, artifacts, of course, Spiritborn Torque is amazing for them. It's made for this march. It's great for all the infantry. But you know, there is really no limit. Dragon Scale Armor is perfectly fine, very decent as well. So is the Fang of Ashikari. This is very tanky, very decent. And there's really like so many infantry stuff. It doesn't really matter what artifact you're using. The Stork is the best one, but it really doesn't matter because, again, the role of the infantry in this season is going to be so important. It's really what I want to emphasize the most. You must be building an infantry hero this season. Goresh Skogul at 5511 are so easy and quite low investment for anyone who's spending a little bit in this game. If you've made it this far after 6 seasons, you really should have an infantry march by now. Like, it's really something important. A tank march in the game is going to matter even more now than ever did before for all types of content strategy in this game. So I really recommend you guys work on at least one infantry march, whether it's Goresh Skogul or Goresh Madeline or whatever you're using. You must be building up and leveling up one of these march. It's going to be so impactful in this season, in my opinion. Let me know what you think about infantry this season, what's about to come with this massive buffs. For those of you who managed to do a bit of PvP in the last few days of the season before the season reset, but after the patch note had gone to, I've seen just how powerful infantry are going to be this season. For those of you who haven't seen, ready up yourself because you are going to get hit by a truck of infantry as they are going to significantly alter the meta as we know it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.